The rope was already cutting into my wrists before I even got a good look at her. That's the thing nobody tells you about bounty work. Half the time, you're so busy watching for the man you're hunting that you stop watching everything else. And everything else has a way of finding you first. My name is Caleb Rourke. I'd been tracking a cattle thief named Dutch Emery for 11 days across the New Mexico territory. 11 days of bad water, dried beef that tasted like boot leather, and sleeping with one eye open on hardpan that would break a good man's spine. I wasn't a particularly good man, which maybe explains how I survived it. The night they took me, I'd made camp near a dry creek bed, about 2 ridges south of the Guadalupe Mountains. The fire was low. I remember thinking I should put it out. I remember the thought forming, clear as anything, and then something hit me from behind, and that thought became the last thought I had for a good while. When I woke up, I was inside a canyon I didn't recognize, my hands tied in front of me with braided rawhide, and there were 11 Apache warriors standing around a fire that was considerably larger than the one I'd made. I did not move. I'd been in bad spots before. The trick with a bad spot is you don't make it worse by doing something foolish before you've had time to think. I just breathed, counted the men, looked for weapons near my hands, nothing. Looked for the horses, tied together about 40 yards off, including mine, too far. Then I saw her. She was sitting apart from the men, closer to the canyon wall, her ankles hobbled with the same kind of rawhide that held my wrists. She wore a calico dress that was torn at one shoulder, dark hair loose and tangled from what looked like a long ride. Her face was turned away from me, but her posture told me things. The stillness of someone who's been afraid for a long time, and learned to make themselves small without disappearing. She wasn't Apache. I could see that much. Mexican, I thought at first. The dress was the kind you'd find in any border town. But there was something else about her. I'd figure it out later. One of the warriors noticed I was awake. He said something in Day, the Apache tongue, and 2 others grabbed me by the arms and hauled me upright. I didn't fight it. Not yet. They brought me to the fire. The man who seemed to be in charge studied me like I was a horse he was deciding whether to buy or shoot. He was somewhere between 40 and 60, lean the way desert men get lean, with 3 parallel scars across his left forearm that looked old and deliberate. He spoke. Nobody translated. I don't speak Nay, I said. Not much. Un poco español. He switched to Spanish. Not perfect, but workable. You follow our camp for 2 nights, he said. I hadn't been following his camp. I'd been following Dutch Emery. But this didn't seem like the moment for a detailed explanation. I was following a white man, I said. Cattle thief. I'm a bounty hunter. I wasn't tracking your people. He looked at me for a long time. Then he looked at the woman by the canyon wall, then back at me. She says she knows a man like you, he said. A bounty man. From Texas. I glanced at the woman. She was watching me now. Her eyes were dark, very steady, and so tired it was almost painful to see. I'm from Texas, I said. Which was true, though I hadn't been back in 6 years and had no particular desire to go. Her name was Sarah. I didn't learn that until later, until after they'd left us tied together near the canyon wall. A way of controlling 2 problems with one knot, I suppose. And the camp had quieted to snoring and dying fire. She didn't speak for a long time. I didn't push it. The night was cold in that specific desert way, where the rocks give back all the heat they'd stored during the day. And then there's nothing left. And the cold comes down from somewhere up in the dark sky like it was waiting. You really a bounty man? She asked. Her English was careful. Not halting, careful. Like someone who learned it properly, rather than pieced it together. Yes, they took me 8 days ago, she said. From a ranch near Tularosa. I worked there, cooking and such. She paused. They killed the rancher and his son. I didn't say anything to that. There wasn't anything useful to say. I thought they were going to kill me, she said. The first day. Then I thought they were going to sell me. Now I don't know what they're planning. The one with the scars, I said. What's his name? Coyote Runs. That's what the others call him. He the leader? Of this group. There are others, further north. I think they're waiting to meet them. Smart woman. Paying attention even when she was as terrified. I noted that. How long until they meet them, do you think? 2 days, maybe 3. I flexed my wrists against the rawhide. It was tight, but not impossible. Rawhide dries and contracts. In the morning, it would be worse. But right now, if I had something to cut with. There's a piece of a broken clay pot, she said quietly. About 6 inches to your left. I've been looking at it for an hour, trying to figure out how to get to it. I turned my head. She was right. A shard of red clay, maybe 4 inches long, with a broken edge that would work if you were patient with it. I looked at her. In the firelight, her face was composed, deliberate. She wasn't panicking. She was planning. "You got a name?" I asked. "Sarah," she said. "Sarah Vasquez." "Caleb Rourke," I said. "If we're going to get out of here, I need you to trust me. And I need you to do exactly what I say when I say it. Can you do that?" She studied me for a moment, not sizing me up the way people do when they're scared. More the way someone does when they've made a decision and they're just confirming it. "I've been surviving 8 days without your help, Mr. Rourke," she said. "But yes, I can work with you." It took me most of the night to work the clay shard toward my hands and begin cutting the rawhide. The thing about rawhide is it doesn't cut clean. It frays, fiber by fiber, and your fingers cramp, and your wrist bleeds from the edge before it bleeds from the rope. But patience is the only currency that works at 3 in the morning in a canyon in New Mexico. Sarah watched the sleeping men while I worked. She'd shift her eyes to me whenever I stopped, then back to the camp. Not a word between us for 2 hours. Just the quiet sound of clay on rawhide and the occasional shifting of hobbled horses. My left hand came free around what I guessed was 4 in the morning. I freed my right hand, then moved to her ankles. The knot on the hobble was different, tighter, more experienced, and I spent 20 minutes on it that felt like 3 years. She never made a sound, not a breath out of place. When her feet came free, she stood up very slowly, testing her ankles. Then she looked at me. I held up 3 fingers, pointed to the horses, held up 2 fingers, pointed to the south end of the canyon, pointed to myself, then pointed to the weapons stacked near the fire. She shook her head once, very small. She pointed to the weapons, then at herself, then at the canyon wall to the east. There was a crack in the rock face, a shadow that might be a path. I looked at it, then at her. She nodded. It was a better plan than mine. What I did not know, and what I would not learn until we were safely south and riding things south through the pre-dawn dark, was that Sarah Vasquez had grown up, partly among the Mescalero Apache. Her mother had lived with them for 2 years before Sarah was born. She spoke perhaps words of a day, knew their habits, knew how they slept and woke, and how the night guard moved his rounds. She also knew that the crack in the canyon wall was not just a crack. It was a path used by a deer trail that led up and over the ridge in 45 minutes of hard climbing. She led. I followed. We went up that rock face in the dark, without a light, without making a sound, with nothing but her sense of it, and my determination not to be the reason we got caught. My hands were bleeding. My boots were wrong for climbing. At one point my foot slipped, and she grabbed my arm without looking back, steady as anything, and kept moving. We crested the ridge as the sky was just beginning to think about becoming gray. She stopped, looked back at the canyon below. Nothing moving yet. Then she looked at me. And for the first time since I'd seen her, she let out a long, slow breath, the kind of breath that carries something with it when it goes. "Horses," she said. "Horses," I agreed. We walked south for 3 hours before we found any. A small ranch operation, mostly goats, with an old Mexican man named Rubio, who looked at us the way people look at things that have come out of the desert. With no particular surprise and considerable caution, I traded my belt buckle, silver, a gift from a woman in Abilene I'd rather not discuss, for the use of 2 horses and enough food to last us to Tularosa. Rubio threw in a blanket because Sarah's dress was in pieces by then, and the morning was cold, and he was a decent man. We rode. The territory opened up south of the mountains, wide and tan and scrub-brushed. The sky doing that thing it does in New Mexico, where it seems bigger than anywhere else in the world. Like someone took the regular sky and stretched it. I'd always hated it and loved it in roughly equal measure. Sarah rode well. Better than me, honestly, on a borrowed horse she'd never met before. "You've been quiet," she said after about an hour. "I'm always quiet. You weren't quiet in the canyon. You kept talking to keep my mind occupied." I hadn't realized I'd been doing that. "Did it work?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "It helped." She paused. "Where were you going?" "Before all this, following a man named Dutch Emery, cattle thief, worth $240. Will you still go after him?" "That's my job. Even after." She gestured vaguely behind us, at the whole direction of the last 12 hours. "A man still got to eat," I said. She smiled. It was the first time I'd seen her smile, and it changed her face in a way that made me look somewhere else. because it was the kind of smile that you don't deserve to look at when you haven't done anything to earn it. My mother was Apache, she said after a while. My father was from Sonora. I grew up between things. She looked at the horizon. You learn to watch carefully when you grow up between things. I noticed, I said. People usually don't. I notice things, I said. It's more or less my whole occupation. Another silence. The horses found their rhythm together, a sound like a slow clock. What will you do, I asked, when we reach Tularosa? I don't know, she said honestly. The ranch I worked at is gone. The people I worked for are dead. She said it plainly, the way someone says a hard fact they've already processed. I'll find something. I always have. I believed her. She said it like a woman who has been finding things her whole life and expected to keep doing it. We reached Tularosa in the late afternoon of the second day. I'd thought somewhere in the back of my mind that when we reached town, I'd see her to the sheriff's office, file a report about the Apache raid, and go back to finding Dutch Emery, clean and simple, the way work usually goes when you don't let anything get complicated. But she'd burned her dress to avoid the infection in a small wound she hadn't mentioned she'd gotten on the climb down the canyon wall. Something that happened in the dark, a piece of rock, she said, nothing. And the wound was angrier than she'd let on, and by the time we rode into Tularosa, she had a fever that was climbing. So instead of the sheriff's office, we went to a boarding house run by a woman named Mrs. Aldecoa, who took one look at Sarah and said, "Bring her in a tone that did not invite discussion. I paid for a room with the last of what I had. I sat in the hallway outside while Mrs. Aldecoa dealt with the fever, and I listened to the sounds of a woman being cared for. And I thought about Dutch Emery and his $240, and whether any of it mattered. The fever broke on the second night. She was sleeping when I looked in. Mrs. Aldecoa was knitting in the corner, because that's the kind of woman she was. Not going to leave someone alone with a fever just because the crisis was past. The room was small and warm and smelled like the herbs Mrs. Aldecoa used for poultices. I should have left then, made arrangements with Mrs. Aldecoa, said goodbye when Sarah woke up, and ridden on. That would have been the sensible thing. I went and got a room down the hall and stayed. When she was well enough to sit up and eat, I brought her soup from the place down the street. Thin with too much salt but hot. She ate it like someone who is genuinely hungry and doesn't see any reason to pretend otherwise. You stayed, she said. Your fever was high. I wanted to make sure you were all right. That's not why, she said. I didn't answer that. She looked at me over the bowl of soup. You're going to go back after your cattle thief, probably. Dutch Emery. Dutch Emery, she set the bowl down. Outside the window, the street was doing its late afternoon business. Wagons, voices, the smell of somebody cooking something better than what I'd brought her. I've been thinking, she said, about what's next for me. And I'm good at watching, she said, and tracking. And I speak Inday and Spanish and English. And I know this territory better than most men who've lived here their whole lives. She looked at me steadily. I'm wondering if there's a use for that. I looked back at her. You're not suggesting what I think you're suggesting, I said. I'm not suggesting anything, she said. I'm thinking out loud. Bounty work is dangerous. So is cooking for a ranch near Tularosa, she said. Apparently, that was fair. I rubbed the back of my neck. There was a particular kind of argument you can't win because the other person is right. And I was sitting across from it. Dutch Emery was last seen near the Mescalero agency, I said. Rough country. Long ride. I know the Mescalero country, she said. I know you do. She waited. I can't pay you much, I said. The split would have to be. I'll take a third, she said. Half, I said. She looked at me. You'd take less, I said. I know that. But I can't take more than half for work that two people are doing together. That's not how I operate. Something shifted in her face. Not quite a smile, but something in the territory. All right, she said. Half. We found Dutch Emery 9 days later, sheltering with a family of homesteaders near Dog Canyon, who I don't think knew who he was. He'd given a false name and was helping with their fence line in exchange for room and board. It was Sarah who spotted him first, from a ridge, from a description I'd given her that was good but not that good. Red hair, heavy in the shoulders, rides with his left foot turned out, she said. That's him. That's him, I agreed. We brought him into Lincoln County the following week. $240, $120 each, which was more than I'd made on most jobs by myself. In the sheriff's office afterward, Dutch Emery called Sarah a word I won't put to paper. I had the sheriff between me and Dutch Emery, or something worse would have happened. Sarah looked at Dutch Emery with an expression that was entirely calm and entirely terrible. "That man," she said to the sheriff, "also stole horses from the Army Regiment Station near Fort Stanton. There's a reward of $80. She looked at me. "I verified yesterday, while you were talking to the telegraph operator." I looked at her. "I told you I was good at this," she said. That was May. By August, we had brought in 4 men between us and had a reputation in 3 counties that I found uncomfortable and she found amusing. She had a pistol by then, a Colt she'd traded for and could shoot better than I'd expected, and wore her hair braided back practical and rode her own horse, a blue roan she called Cielo, who she talked to in Unday when she thought I wasn't listening. One evening in late August, we made camp north of the Sacramento Mountains, where the air comes up cold from somewhere below, and the pinon smoke smells like something you can almost remember, but can't quite name. I was watching the fire. Sarah was sitting near me, not close, the way we'd started, but the way we'd ended up, which was closer. She'd been reading a letter from a cousin in Sonora. She folded it and looked at the fire too. "Caleb," she said. It was the first time she'd used my first name without my last name with it. I don't think either of us had planned that. "Yeah," I said. "I'm not going anywhere," she said. I looked at her. The firelight was doing the thing it does, making everything look warmer and more true at the same time. "I know that," I said. "I just wanted to say it clearly," she said, "because I think sometimes you think I might leave, take a job, or go to Sonora, or Sarah." "What?" "I know you're not going anywhere," I said. "I stopped worrying about that a while ago." She looked at me. "When?" I thought about it honestly. "Dog Canyon," I said. "When you spotted Emery, and you looked at me, and you said, 'That's him.' Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like we'd been doing this for years." I turned a stick in the fire. I knew then. She was quiet for a moment. "You never said anything," she said. I didn't know what to say. "I'm better at watching than I am at talking." "You talked to me all through that canyon," she said. "In the dark. You kept my mind from going somewhere dark. That was different." "How was it different?" I looked at the fire. "That was easy," I said. "Saying for important things is harder." She moved closer. "Not much. Just enough that I was aware of exactly how close she was, the way you're aware of warmth before you're aware of the source of it." "Then don't say it," she said. "Just don't say the other thing either. Don't tell yourself you're going to ride on after the next job, or that this is just work, or whatever you tell yourself." She looked at me straight. "Because I've been surviving between things my whole life, Caleb Rourke, and I know when something is real and when it isn't. This is real." The fire crackled. Somewhere out in the dark, Cielo shifted and made a small horse sound, the kind they make when they're content. I put my arm around her. It wasn't dramatic about it, just my arm around her shoulders, and she leaned into it like she'd been waiting for me to stop being an idiot, which, honestly, she had been. "It's real," I said. She breathed out slow. I felt her shoulders come down from where she'd been holding them. Not because she was frightened, just because she'd been carrying something, and she was setting it down. We sat like that for a long time. The fire burned low. The stars came out in that New Mexico way, too many of them, like someone had spilled them. Later, when she was asleep and I was on watch, I thought about the kind of man I'd been before 11 days, chasing Dutch Emery through bad country, before a canyon and a piece of clay and a woman who'd spotted a crack in a rock wall in the dark. I thought about what it cost to grow up between things, to learn to be still when you're afraid, to watch carefully because nobody's going to watch for you. I thought about what it meant that she'd trusted me in that canyon, not because she had to. She'd been surviving 8 days on her own, but because she decided to. That she'd kept that trust even after I'd given her no particular reason to. You spend enough time alone in the desert, and you start to think you prefer it. The silence, the simplicity, just you and the work and the horizon. But that's not preference. That's just what you call it when you stop expecting anything better. I looked at her sleeping. The fire was almost out. I added another piece of wood. Not enough to wake her, just enough to keep the cold back. I'd been keeping the cold back from people my whole life, and not letting any of them close enough to do the same for me. I was done with that. We got married in Lincoln County in October, in front of a justice of the peace who had one eye and a remarkable mustache, and conducted the whole thing in about 4 minutes, which was about right for both of us. Mrs. Aldecoa sent a letter that made Sarah cry, which Sarah then denied having done. Rubio, the old man with the goats who'd loaned us horses, somehow found out and sent a small clay pot full of honey, which arrived unbroken, which felt like a sign of something. Dutch Emery, from inside the Lincoln County Jail, sent his congratulations through the sheriff, which nobody had expected, and which made us both laugh, out loud in the street, which was maybe the best wedding present of all. 15 years later, I still wake up before dawn. Old habit, desert habit. I lie there in the dark and listen to the territory breathing, and I think about the things that have happened and the ones that haven't yet. Sarah sleeps the way she does everything. Efficiently, completely, with both hands making small fists on the pillow. I watch the light come. People ask me how I ended up in New Mexico with a family and a small horse operation and a reputation for being someone you could trust to find a man when he needed finding. I never know quite where to start. Because the real answer is a piece of broken clay in the dark, a woman who spotted a crack in a canyon wall, a plan that was better than mine, and a long ride south through the pre-dawn dark, with the sky getting bigger by the mile, and the horses finding their rhythm together, and everything still ahead of us. That's the whole of it, and it's enough.